What if I told you that America's entertainment capital is experiencing its worst economic crisis since the pandemic, with luxury malls sitting empty at 11 a.m. and major corporations fleeing faster than tourists after losing their last dollar? Las Vegas, the city that never sleeps, is now struggling to stay awake as store closures multiply, international flights vanish, and even Starbucks can't survive on the Strip. Behind the glittering facade of F1 races and celebrity events lies a troubling reality that casino executives don't want you to see. Today, we're exposing the shocking truth about Vegas's economic freefall and why your next vacation might cost more than ever, despite fewer visitors walking through those casino doors. 1. The fashion show mall crisis, when America's busiest shopping center becomes a ghost town. Walking through Fashion Show Mall at 10:47 a.m. reveals a disturbing scene that would have been unthinkable just 3 years ago. One of the western United States' busiest retail destinations sits virtually abandoned, with confused tourists wandering past darkened storefronts wondering why nothing is open. This isn't some struggling suburban mall in a declining Rust Belt city. This is prime Las Vegas Strip real estate, where foot traffic once guaranteed retail success, and stores competed fiercely for premium locations near the Apple Store. The mall that historically opened its doors at 9 a.m. now keeps shoppers waiting until 11 a.m., a clear signal that management has calculated there simply aren't enough early morning customers to justify the operational costs. The vacancy crisis extends far beyond delayed opening hours, with multiple storefronts sitting empty for months despite being in what should be the most desirable retail location in Nevada. 3 vacant spaces within walking distance of each other near the Apple Store tell a story of retail apocalypse hitting even the most trafficked areas. The former Starbucks location, once buzzing with caffeine-seeking tourists and locals, now stands as a monument to corporate retreat from what was considered guaranteed profit territory. When Starbucks abandons a Strip location, it signals something far more serious than typical retail churn. It represents a fundamental shift in consumer spending patterns and foot traffic density. This retail exodus connects directly to the 3,700 store closures already confirmed across America, with analysts predicting an astronomical 18,000 closures by the end of 2025. The Fashion Show Mall's struggles serve as a canary in the coal mine for Vegas's broader economic health, demonstrating that even locations with historically strong international tourist traffic can't maintain occupancy when the underlying economic fundamentals deteriorate. The psychological impact on remaining retailers creates a death spiral effect. As anchor stores close, foot traffic decreases, making it harder for surviving businesses to justify their lease payments, leading to more closures in a cascading failure that transforms shopping districts into commercial graveyards. 2. Corporate America's mass exodus, why major companies are abandoning Vegas. The corporate retreat from Las Vegas extends far beyond small gift shops and independent restaurants, with telecommunications giant Verizon announcing 15,000 layoffs, the largest workforce reduction in the company's corporate history. This isn't just another tech company trimming fat after overhiring during the pandemic. Verizon represents old-school American corporate stability, the kind of company where people built 30-year careers and retired with pensions. These mass layoffs directly impact Vegas's economy because Verizon employees represent exactly the demographic that MGM CEO Bill Hornbuckle desperately wants to attract back to the gaming tables: middle and upper middle class professionals with disposable income for entertainment and travel. The timing couldn't be worse for Las Vegas's attempted pivot toward attracting higher value customers rather than budget tourists. Just as casino executives implement strategies to lure back premium players, the very corporations employing these target demographics are conducting historic layoffs. The ripple effects extend beyond direct job losses. When 15,000 Verizon employees lose their positions, it affects mortgage payments in suburban markets, reduces business travel budgets, and eliminates discretionary spending on Vegas vacations. Each laid-off telecom engineer or sales manager represents not just one lost visitor, but potentially an entire family's canceled vacation plans. Pepsi's decision to close multiple production facilities adds another layer to this corporate retreat narrative, particularly significant because snack foods and impulse purchases serve as economic bellwethers. When Frito-Lay can't sell enough chips and cookies to keep factories open, it indicates consumers have moved beyond cutting luxury purchases to reducing everyday indulgences. This behavioral shift devastates Vegas's economic model, which depends entirely on impulse decisions, from that extra hand of blackjack to the overpriced nightclub bottle service. service. The psychological state that prevents someone from buying a $3 bag of chips that cost $1 pre-pandemic is the same mindset that keeps them from driving to Vegas for a weekend of gambling. The cascade of corporate failures creates a vicious cycle affecting every level of Vegas's economy. Empty storefronts mean reduced property tax revenue for infrastructure maintenance. Fewer corporate travelers mean lower weekday hotel occupancy rates. Reduced consumer confidence translates to smaller gambling budgets even among those who still visit. The city finds itself trapped between needing to maintain its image as a luxury destination while watching its customer base evaporate through systematic corporate downsizing across America. 3. International travel collapse, the hidden crisis in cross-border tourism. Air Canada's systematic cancellation of routes between major Canadian cities and American destinations represents a devastating blow to Vegas's international tourism strategy, particularly given Canadians' historical importance to the city's visitor demographics. The canceled routes, Montreal to Detroit, Toronto to Indianapolis, Vancouver to Tampa and Nashville, might seem unrelated to Vegas at first glance, but they indicate a broader Canadian withdrawal from American travel that threatens one of Vegas's most reliable international markets. While no direct Vegas flights have been cut yet, the pattern suggests a fundamental shift in Canadian travel preferences and economic capacity that will inevitably impact Southern Nevada's tourism numbers. The timing of these cancellations, running through winter 2025 into May 2026, suggests airlines anticipate prolonged tension between Canadian travelers and American destinations, possibly related to political dynamics, exchange rate concerns, or shifting cultural attitudes toward American tourism. Canadian visitors have historically represented Vegas's most valuable international segment outside of Asian high rollers, with longer average stays, higher per capita spending, and seasonal reliability during Vegas's shoulder seasons. Their potential disappearance from the visitor mix forces casinos to rely even more heavily on domestic travelers already stressed by inflation and job insecurity. The psychological dimension of Canadian travel sentiment. Reports of visitors declaring they'll never come back to America ever again represents a crisis that transcends temporary economic fluctuations. This emotional rejection of American destinations stems from a complex mixture of political tensions, cultural divergence, and economic pressures that marketing campaigns alone cannot overcome. When an entire nation's travelers develop negative associations with your destination, the recovery timeline extends far beyond typical economic cycles, potentially creating a lost generation of international visitors who find alternative entertainment destinations in Europe or Asia. The broader implications for Vegas's international strategy become apparent when considering the city's increasing dependence on special events like Formula One to attract European and Asian visitors. With Canadians potentially lost as reliable visitors and Mexican tourism constrained by economic challenges, Vegas must compete more aggressively for long-haul international travelers who have numerous global entertainment options. This competition occurs precisely when the city's infrastructure struggles with basic retail occupancy and service availability, creating a disconnect between marketing promises and on-ground reality that sophisticated international travelers quickly recognize. 4. The Federal Reserve's recession warning. Banking crisis meets tourism collapse. The Cleveland Federal Reserve Bank's assessment that America faces a 24% recession probability represents more than academic speculation. It's a data-driven warning that directly impacts every aspect of Vegas's tourism-dependent economy. With 82% of American states already experiencing recession-like conditions according to various economic indicators, the question isn't whether a recession will impact Vegas, but rather how severe the damage will be when official recognition arrives. Consumer confidence sitting at a 3.5-year low creates a psychological environment where discretionary travel spending becomes the first budget item eliminated, regardless of actual financial capacity. The banking system's structural problems compound Vegas's vulnerabilities in ways most tourists never consider. During COVID, massive money printing led to bank deposits that financial institutions then parked with the Federal Reserve for minimal returns, creating a liquidity trap where banks have deposits but limited lending capacity. This technical dysfunction means even credit-worthy customers face difficulty accessing travel financing through credit cards or personal loans, historically crucial for Vegas vacation funding. When someone can't get approved for a credit limit increase to fund their Vegas weekend, that's a direct loss to casino revenue regardless of their actual income or assets. The perverse economic dynamics create a pricing paradox Vegas cannot escape. As visitor numbers decline, casinos must raise prices on remaining customers to meet fixed costs and debt obligations, further reducing accessibility for price-sensitive travelers. This captive audience pricing strategy might work temporarily for F1 attendees or convention travelers with expense accounts, but it destroys the value proposition for regular visitors who once viewed Vegas as affordable entertainment. The feedback loop accelerates decline. Higher prices reduce visitors, forcing even higher prices on remaining guests, eventually pricing out even middle-class professionals who represent the casino industry's target demographic. The intersection of banking dysfunction, consumer confidence collapse, and recession probability creates what economists call a perfect storm scenario for tourism-dependent economies. Vegas's particular vulnerability stems from its lack of economic diversification. Unlike Orlando with its theme parks or Nashville with its music industry, Vegas depends almost entirely on discretionary gambling and entertainment spending. When Federal Reserve banks start publicly discussing recession probabilities, corporate travel managers immediately reduce budgets, families cancel vacations, and even wealthy individuals become more conservative with entertainment spending, creating an immediate and sustained impact on every aspect of Vegas's economy, from taxi drivers to cocktail servers to casino executives. 5. The F1 paradox: why mega events can't save a declining economy. Formula One's arrival in Las Vegas represents the city's desperate attempt to replace declining regular tourism with high-profile special events. But the strategy reveals fundamental misunderstandings about economic sustainability and visitor demographics. The transformation of the Strip into what resembles a prison detention center with covered bridges and restricted access demonstrates how these mega events actually destroy the casual tourist experience that historically sustained Vegas's economy. While billionaires sip champagne worth more than average annual salaries, regular visitors find themselves trapped in traffic, unable to access casinos, and facing astronomical price increases justified by event pricing that persists long after races end. The economic mathematics of F1 dependency simply don't work for a city needing millions of annual visitors to sustain its massive infrastructure. Even if every F1 attendee spends 10 times what normal tourists spend, the 3-day event cannot compensate for 12 months of declining regular visitation. The opportunity cost becomes staggering when considering how F1 preparations and restrictions deter regular tourists who might have visited during race weeks but choose alternative destinations rather than navigate construction zones and inflated prices. This substitution effect, losing 10 regular visitors to gain 1 premium visitor, might work for luxury resorts, but fails catastrophically for a destination requiring volume to sustain thousands of hotel rooms, restaurants, and retail spaces. The international visitors attracted by F1, primarily Europeans and Asians following the racing circuit, represent a fundamentally different customer profile than Vegas's traditional audience. These visitors come specifically for racing, not gambling, viewing Vegas as merely another stop on an international circuit rather than a destination worthy of repeat visits. Their spending patterns concentrate on race-related activities, luxury goods, and high-end dining, contributing little to the broader economy of local businesses, smaller casinos, and service workers who depend on volume tourism. The economic benefits claimed by F1 promoters assume these visitors will behave like traditional Vegas tourists, gambling heavily and exploring beyond race venues, but evidence suggests they remain within the F1 ecosystem, creating an economic bubble that barely touches the broader community. The infrastructure damage and resident disruption caused by F1 preparations create long-term costs that no 3-day event can justify. When locals avoid the Strip for months due to construction, when small businesses lose customers due to access restrictions, when emergency services struggle to navigate modified traffic patterns, the cumulative economic damage extends far beyond any revenue generated by race weekends. The city's pursuit of prestige events over sustainable tourism represents a fundamental strategic error, prioritizing global perception over economic reality, chasing headlines instead of focusing on the steady visitor flow that built Vegas into America's entertainment capital. 6. Luxury retail's death spiral. from Saks Fifth Avenue to strip closures. Saks Fifth Avenue's closure of multiple off-Fifth locations sends a chilling signal about luxury retail's viability even in markets theoretically supported by high-end tourism and international visitors. These outlets, functioning as TJ Maxx for rich people, offered designer goods at accessible prices, bridging the gap between mass-market retail and true luxury shopping. Their failure indicates even affluent consumers have pulled back spending, either due to actual financial pressure or psychological uncertainty about future economic conditions. When someone who could afford an $800 suit jacket at full price chooses not to buy it at $150, that behavioral shift represents something far more serious than typical bargain hunting. The luxury retail collapse connects directly to broader wealth destruction occurring across financial markets, real estate, and cryptocurrency, where many Vegas high rollers generated their gambling stakes. The wealth effect, people spending based on perceived rather than realized wealth, works in reverse during downturns, causing even genuinely wealthy individuals to reduce conspicuous consumption. This psychological shift devastates Vegas's luxury retail ecosystem, from forum shops to Wynn Esplanades, where rent structures assume consistent high-value transactions. Empty luxury storefronts create perception problems that extend beyond lost rent, suggesting economic decline even to visitors who might otherwise spend freely. The contrast between Vegas's luxury aspirations and retail reality becomes increasingly stark as stores close while casinos continue announcing premium property developments and ultra-luxury amenities. This disconnect reveals fundamental misunderstanding about customer behavior. The same person who might have splurged on designer goods during a winning streak now walks past empty storefronts, reminded of economic uncertainty rather than inspired toward aspirational spending. The psychological impact compounds as visitors interpret closed luxury stores as evidence of broader economic problems, becoming more conservative with gambling budgets even if their personal finances remain stable. The cascading failure of luxury retail eliminates crucial ecosystem support for Vegas's high-end positioning strategy. Without shopping options to occupy non-gambling spouses, without retail therapy to celebrate wins or compensate for losses, without the visual excitement of bustling luxury boutiques, the overall visitor experience diminishes even for those willing to pay premium prices. The city finds itself caught between abandoned luxury ambitions and inability to return to value-oriented positioning, having destroyed its budget tourist infrastructure while failing to establish sustainable luxury demand. 7. The credit crisis. How banking dysfunction destroys tourism economics. The technical dysfunction in America's banking system, where excess COVID-era deposits created a reverse liquidity trap, represents an existential threat to Vegas's credit-dependent tourism model. Banks, required to maintain reserves but unable to generate returns, have paradoxically become more restrictive with lending precisely when consumers most need credit access for discretionary spending. The scenario where someone asks their bank for vacation money only to discover it's been given to the government who spent it because that's what governments do might sound absurdly comedic, but it accurately describes the current monetary dysfunction preventing normal credit flow to potential Vegas visitors. Traditional Vegas vacation funding through credit cards, personal loans, and home equity lines has essentially evaporated as banks tighten lending standards despite holding massive deposits. The psychological impact extends beyond those actually denied credit. Even qualified borrowers hesitate to access credit lines when economic uncertainty makes repayment questionable. This credit anxiety creates a self-fulfilling prophecy where reduced spending leads to economic decline, justifying the very fears that cause spending reduction. Vegas, more than any other American tourist destination, depends on visitors' willingness to spend beyond their immediate means, making credit accessibility crucial for maintaining visitor volumes and gambling revenues. The perverse dynamics of modern monetary policy mean that Federal Reserve attempts to control inflation through interest rate manipulation directly attack Vegas's customer base. Higher rates increase credit card interest, making vacation debt more expensive. Tighter lending standards exclude marginal borrowers who historically represented significant visitor segments. Reduced home equity values eliminate vacation funding sources for middle-class families. Each Federal Reserve decision ripples through to Vegas visitor numbers with mathematical precision, yet casino operators seem unable or unwilling to acknowledge this fundamental dependency on macroeconomic credit conditions. The credit crisis creates particularly acute problems for international visitors facing both domestic credit restrictions and currency exchange pressures. When Canadian or European visitors face 20% currency disadvantages, plus restricted credit access in their home countries, Vegas becomes mathematically impossible, regardless of marketing effectiveness or entertainment quality. The compound effect of global credit tightening means Vegas cannot simply wait for American economic recovery, but must confront synchronized global credit contraction that could persist for years. The city's business model, predicated on easy credit and loose spending, faces existential challenge from structural changes in global banking that no amount of local innovation can overcome. Las Vegas stands at an economic crossroads, where empty storefronts, corporate retreats, and banking dysfunction converge to challenge its very survival as America's playground. The question isn't whether Vegas will recover, but whether it can reinvent itself before economic reality destroys the illusion. What's your take on Vegas's future? Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more unfiltered economic analysis.